Korda Land and Sea Phoenician Infrastructure Scheme. My most important project of my lifetime.
You asked so much of me! So much!
Up above, gathered on a field of cloud.
The return of Wes Anderson, an adaptation of a best-selling Deborah Levy book, hits the cinemas, and Gael Garcia Bernal cheats death. It's all happening on this week's film show. France 24's critic Ben Croll, fresh from the Cannes Film
I don't know
Festival.
about fresh, but I'm here.
Well rested at least.
Not about that either.
Well, he joins me now to try and break it all down. Our first film follows a star-studded cast led by Benicio del Toro as an eccentric billionaire, Ben. But the real star of the Phoenician Scheme is, of course, the director himself, Wes Anderson.
As always, you can't see a Wes Anderson film and mistake it for any other director. And this is another emblematic Wes Anderson adventure with all the hallmarks of his style. Benicio del Toro stars as Zsa Korda, a rogue industrialist crossing the globe as he tries to put together the deal of his lifetime, all while dodging assassination attempts left and right and trying to reconnect with his daughter, a nun played by an up-and-coming actress named Mia Threepleton, who looks just
Very
like
familiar.
her real-life mother, Kate Winslet. And in fact, the movie is a sea of familiar faces with Tom Hanks, Scarlett Johansson, Benedict Cumberbatch, Bill Murray, Jeffrey Wright, all turning up as colorful bit players in a whimsical world. Now, we're going to look at a clip in just a second, but before that, I have a challenge for you. Close your eyes, imagine a Wes Anderson movie, and you may get very close to the clip we're about to see. Let's take a look.
The Phoenician Scheme.
Subject, Zsa Korda.
He's the shrewdest businessman alive.
Hero.
I took a bullet for you.
I'm aware. I witnessed the event. Romantic.
Did you love her?
No.
Holy moly.
Legend.
You're fired.
What'd you say?
You're fired.
I'm fired?
Even though, kind of aesthetically and stylistically, he has this signature, the stories that he tells are so varied.
Get the hand grenades.
Incredibly entertaining, just as an audience member, as a fan.
Call it. Heads. Heads.
Is this supposed to be here? It was under the lunch trolley.
Oh dear.
Oh, we were having good fun.
Yeah, I laugh all the time.
Yeah.
Just trying to say some of the lines. The first dozen times I'm on the floor laughing.
Why are you shooting my ceiling?
This is a robbery.
The more absurd, the better.
I recognize this assassin.
Oh no.
So it's got the Wes Anderson stamp all over it. Ben, how does this film stand out from the other ones?
Well, it's all about really the influences that he takes, As we heard the actors saying before, Wes Anderson is a bit of an adapter. He takes these very different influences from film history, from culture, from political history, and he just funnels them through his own particular style and lens. In this case, he's playing with this 1940s Technicolor style. I mean, the character of Korda, played by Benicio del Toro, is a direct reference to the Hungarian-British producer Alexander Korda, who produced films like The Thief of Baghdad and The Jungle Book. His daughter is a nun, obviously a reference to Black Narcissist from the directors Powell and Pressburger. And he's funneling it through, getting as close to politics as he will ever try to get in his whimsical way, with a story about industrialists trying to extract minerals in the Middle East.
Now, the film recently premiered, of course, at the Cannes Film Festival, where it received a somewhat muted response. Why do you think that is?
He's a bit of a victim of his own success. If anybody else had made this movie, it would be a revelation. If Wes Anderson brings this latest film, it's just another Wes Anderson movie, He's kind of at the top of his career right now. He just recently won an Academy Award, his first Academy Award, for the film The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. And that was a story about a man who reaches fabulous wealth and success, and he just gets bored. That's also the story of the Phoenician Scheme. And in a way, it sounds like Wes Anderson is even himself getting a little bit tired of his whole shtick.
Okay, so, moving on now to a less familiar name then. The playwright Rebecca Lenkiewicz makes her directing debut with Hot Milk, which is adapted from a novel by Deborah Levy of the same name. It premiered at the Berlin Film Festival this year.
That's right, and the film follows a very toxic relationship between a mother and a daughter. The Franco-British actor Emma Mackey plays a young woman caring for her wheelchair-bound mother and taking her to an experimental treatment center on the Spanish coast. There, the young woman escapes from her mother's oppressive hold, and she falls in love with a free spirit played by Vicky Krieps.
Well, let's take a look then at Hot Milk from Rebecca Lenkiewicz.
What would you do if I could walk?
Be happy.
Is anyone else in the family?
There's no one else, just me and Sophia. I waited a long time for my only.
What are you going to do? You can't be a nursemaid all your life.
Look at all this blue, Sophie. I was waiting for a long time. Should be listening out for me.
You know, the film is one of the first ever adaptations of Deborah Levy, a British author whose work really blends irony with emotional depth, talks about sort of very intimate subjects in a very frank and almost casual way. But the film has a lot of issues, and it never quite succeeds in capturing the author's voice. The film is about a toxic codependent relationship, but you never understand the roots of this toxic codependency. You never really understand where the characters are coming from. And the film has a hard time playing with the ambiguity that's a lot easier to convey on the page. You know, on the page, something is written, but you're not exactly sure what it means. When you shoot a film, the act of actually shooting something literalizes an idea. And so the book kind of plays with this uncertainty as to whether the mother is really sick or not. The film, from first-time director Rebecca Lenkiewicz, doesn't have that same cinematic mastery to transfer the ambiguity that's easier to convey on the page.
Yeah, so it's never easy, is it, to transfer or to adapt from a book to a film?
It's never easy, and this film shows that you know, it's worth the effort, but you know, sometimes you got to keep on trying.
Yeah, sometimes you are quite limited creatively. Well, next up is Another End that stars Gael Garcia Bernal. Now, from what I understand, from what I could gather from the trailer, this is a love story with sci-fi elements and people trying to cheat death.
Well, let's say delay the finality of death more than cheating it. The film imagines a very futuristic technique that allows living human surrogates to hold the memories and consciousness of the recently deceased, and it's used as a way to help the bereaved, you know, to ease the bereaved into the finality of mourning and the finality of goodbye. Gael Garcia Bernal plays a man whose wife just died in a car crash, but she gets reanimated, and her consciousness and memories are uploaded into a woman played by Renata Reinsve. Let's take a look.
¿Qué estás pensando?
Me gustaría sacarla de aquí.
It would not be a stranger. It would just be a different body with Zoe's memories, Zoe's thoughts. Let her live again.
¿Cómo te fue?
Muy bien. Hubo un momento donde me lo creí.
Now, you know, Ben, that it reminds me of elements of a Black Mirror episode that I saw recently. How does the film fare for you?
You know what? It would be better if it was a Black Mirror episode. Because I think at least the Black Mirror episode would do more with the premise. I mean, I think the premise is so interesting and so rich, this idea of being able to connect across the grave with somebody who has the memories of your partner, but not actually their physical bearing. But the film does very little with that. It just sort of turns that into a very conventional, predictable love story. You know exactly where everything is going to go 10 minutes before it ever gets there. And that's unfortunate because, you know, in the end, the film's biggest surprise is how little it does with such a good idea. So, you know what? If Black Mirror wants to take the idea again and run with it, I say take it, because you can do a lot more with this idea than Another End actually does.
Well, a message for Charlie Brooker, if ever he's watching.
Are you listening, Charlie?
If ever he's watching this show, feel free to take the idea and run with it. That's from Ben Croll.
I want a commission, though. Finder's fee.
Now let's close out with the cult documentary called Winged Migration. It's been newly restored in 4K. Heads back to the cinemas.
That's right. You know, the film was really a landmark when it came out in 2001. Director Jacques Perrin shot the project for 3 years, working with really some of the greatest film talents, the best cinematographers known to man, to create or to recreate this feeling of flight. You know, they would find new ways to fly among a flock of birds, to take the point of view of birds, to immerse the viewers into the air. And that turned the documentary Winged Migration into a blockbuster of the natural documentary sort. You know, there's always films that play at science centers and, museums and everything, but this actually broke into the multiplex and it became quite a big hit, winning the César for Best Editing, being nominated for the Oscar for Best Documentary, and leading to a renaissance of these kinds of nature blockbusters. A few years later, there was March of the Penguins, which did even bigger business and became an even bigger cultural phenomenon. However, the genre has kind of gone extinct in the past few years. HD televisions, series like Planet Earth, and streaming platforms that are dedicated to this kind of material have made television the natural habitat for these kind of nature docs, all of which makes the return to the big screen a very welcome one. As we see with Migration, eventually everything always comes back, and I'm very happy to see this film coming back and for young audiences to get the chance to experience the glory and perhaps sometimes the ennui that sometimes young audiences got to see when the film came out 24 years ago.
So the nature doc film genre, hoping to find maybe a new generation of fans with this re-release. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Ben Croll. Let's leave you with some images of Winged Migration. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. More news coming up.
Up above, gathered on a field of clouds, crowded alert down in the lowlands, waiting for their time